As I was taking a walking meditation the other day, I started thinking about understanding that we are source energy, and when we croak, we're going to reemerge into that. And the question I had was, once we reemerge into the source energy, where does that go? And why did we choose planet Earth to manifest in these physical bodies in? And is there source energy outside of our galaxy? And does it go beyond that?
Well, there is source energy everywhere. As you are in your physical form, you work so hard to quantify things. And that is, in fact, why we refer to this as a time-space reality. Because in your measuring through time and in your measurement of space, you hone this broad spectrum of thought more into a laser beam type light, which makes it more meaningful to you as you live it. When you realize that energy or vibration or thought, the words are all inadequate, but they refer to a vibration that is not necessarily seen. When you walk into a room, sometimes you can smell things you can't see. Sometimes you can hear things that you can't identify through sight. Always you can feel things that you can't interpret through your five senses. In other words, you are deciphering your environment. When you walk into a room and you say, I'm going to go see what's going on in there, you're not just going to see what's going on in there. You're going to observe what's going on in there with many aspects of your being that you can't even articulate or identify. So for us to try to explain to you through your needing to decipher it through a physical format, we just are not going to find words that are going to be very meaningful to you. We can say, it's big, it's far, there's really a lot out there. But your ability to perceive it, you've got to be able to get your thoughts around it. And this Art of Allowing workshop is all about helping you to realize that you don't know it. And your question really indicates that you're looking at it differently than we want you to. You don't know it, but you are the culmination of all of that. In other words, all of that is culminating here in this laser beam. But the thing that's so interesting is in this culmination, in this fine-tuning, deciphering, you're still asking for more. That is shooting the rocket that is calling source to infuse again. And so the whole thing is expanding and expanding and expanding. So we will answer your question in these ways. All that you're trying to get us to define for you is all focused into environments like this, leading edge environments of expansion. And there are as many of these kinds of leading edge environments of expansion as anyone can perceive. Now, people often on planet Earth, in human form, want to know, well, are there other people? Are there other beings? Are there other physical entities? Are there other leading edge environments of non-physical like this? And we say, yes, they are endless. And then you say, well, are we intertwining? And we say, no, you are of different vibrational frequencies. You can't set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.7. It's a different frequency. And then you say, well, will I ever go there? Will I reemerge into non-physical? And from that vantage point, will I say, oh, look over there. I think I'll go there next time. Right. And we say, think about what you've been hearing from us. You and all that you are extensions of the source energy. In other words, you are coming forth into this environment because this is the environment of your source. You see what we're getting at? And we think that to try to understand, it would be like being a physical human. And a lot of you try to be this way, and it never works out for you. It would be like being a physical being and wanting to know what every other human being on the planet is doing today. And we say, it's way more information than you want. You came for this vantage point to mesh with the larger part of who you are for the joy of this experience. And while we know that you want to take this vantage point and mix it up in a lot of different places, if you will just tend to the relationship between you and you will step often into this broader point of view, and you will begin to see the world through the eyes of Source. When you first began, you said something so interesting. You said, I took a walking meditation. And first we want to say, when you really meditate, you quiet your mind. When you really quiet your mind, you release all thought about this. And in the doing so, you reemerge, literally, you reemerge into that higher vibration. It's not different than dying. It's not different than sleeping. It's a releasing of focus which ceases vibration, which allows this vibration to dominate. But when you are taking a walking meditation, what that means in its ultimate form is that you have tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You've brought yourself into the vibrational frequency of who you are. And from that source perspective, you're taking your walk. And when you allow yourself, when you tune yourself to the frequency of who you are, and then you begin to perceive this time-space reality, all of those answers to all of those questions become yours on a visceral level. In other words, the cells of your body begin responding as if they are Source. You begin to interact with your environment in ways that your 5 physical senses can't even begin to decipher. You begin to know the true nature of who you are. Your understanding of worthiness and beingness and love becomes so pervasive through your body, from the top of your head to the tip of your toe, and wafting through every cell of your body. In other words, the pureness of that which is Source defies all explanation and all ability to speak it. But you can know it on a truly visceral level, you see. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would take great delight in this leading edge environment, and we would devour the details of this life experience. And if we find something we don't like, we would celebrate in the knowing that we abhor that. Because in knowing that we abhor that, we know that there is an equal, commensurate launching of a rocket of desire. And we know that in our knowing of that, the world has become better. And then we would do everything in our conscious, deliberate power to begin turning our attention to what we believe we have just asked for. Until when you get good at this, when you take the hit and then go to who you really are, you can begin to walk this planet keeping up with who you really are. There's not a hierarchy. You're not being measured by others. There's not some standard that you're trying to achieve. It's this standard. It's this closing of this gap. And so no matter how old you are, or how big you are, or how rich you are, or where you live, when life causes you to want this, and you are able to somehow become a vibrational match to that, that is divine. That is alignment. That is satisfaction and contentment beyond description. Momentarily, because now you have a new vantage point and new contrast that would give birth to something else. But when you catch the spirit of this closing the gap, closing the gap, closing the gap, then you leave behind your fretting or your worrying about what's wrong. You lose your judgment. You don't call things wrong. You just call them, I don't want it. You don't condemn it and push against it and worry about it. You just say, I prefer it not. What is it that I do prefer? And as soon as you turn your attention to that, the universe will surround you by your preferences. And, as soon as you get surrounded by your preferences, there's going to be a whole lot of the world who is not surrounded by their preferences that are going to be annoyed that you're surrounded by your preferences. And if you give them your attention, then you're going to have a negative experience. But then you're going to launch a rocket of desire that says, I don't want to be concerned or guided by someone else's annoyance. And you're going to launch a rocket that says, I wish for them a better life. I wish for them more understanding. I wish for them this path of joy. I wish for them being Source energy in a physical body. I wish for them to catch up with who they are. I wish for them to be the joyful being that they are. I wish for them to be able to see the universe through the eyes of Source. I wish for myself knowing of all that is. And I wish that for anyone who wants it for themselves. And then you just keep reaching for the thought and reaching for the thought and reaching for the thought until until before you know it, no matter where you stand, no matter what you're doing, no matter who you're doing it with, you're having a joyful moment. And then you are the light that you came forth to be, the light that leads others into a brighter place and a brighter place, a less resistant place. What troubles most of you, especially teachers like you, is that you get your light shining bright. You see somebody in a dark corner and you shine the light on them and they say, "Get that light out of my eyes." And you say, "No, it's really good out here in the light." And they say, "Go away and leave me alone." And it's hard to understand why someone won't come with you when you're experiencing so much joy. But you just gotta understand that it's as much satisfaction for someone to move from fear into revenge as it is for you to move from hope into belief. In other words, any movement on that emotional scale feels good to the one who's doing the moving. But it never feels good to you, who's up here in appreciation, to go down there and try to drag somebody out of where they are, because usually you just resent them for being there. Helpful?
Very. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes. We have enjoyed this interaction more than words can convey. It has been an exhilarating day for those of us who know what's in your vibrational escrow, because we can feel that the proximity between where you are and what's there has closed considerably. It's not our intention to get you to the stuff you want, because that is a given. In other words, you don't need us for that. It is our intention to assist you in understanding who you are, the rules of the game, so to speak, the laws of the universe. It is our desire to assist you in putting it all together so that you can deliberately, once and for all, be the creator of your own experience. You are powerful beings, and when you are not exercising your own personal power, you don't do so well. You don't take it well. When you're not loving, you don't take it well, because you are a lover. When you are feeling out of balance, you don't take it well, because you are enormously balanced beings. When you don't thrive, you don't take it well, because you are meant to thrive, and at the core of that which you are is such a stable basis of such knowledge and well-being that when you deviate from it because of your attention to one thing or another, you don't take it well. Friends, you are not supposed to do well in the feeling of negative emotion. Negative emotion is your indicator that you're out of balance. Now you know what to do about it. It's not a hard thing to get into balance when you realize that it's just a tweaking of your thought, a gentle, gradual tweaking of your thought. Doesn't it give you enormous relief to know that you don't have to modify the behavior of your wife to feel better? Doesn't it give you enormous relief to realize that you don't have to change the world in order to see the world the way you want it to be? Isn't it reassuring to you to understand that life is good and getting better? Don't you like knowing that it is not possible for you all to come forth and have such broad exposure to all of this experience without putting wonderful things into your vibrational escrow? And don't you love knowing that once it's there, you have access to it? And don't you love knowing that negative emotion means two really important things? It means you've expanded. Oh, that matters. And you're not letting yourself go. That matters. We always put the emphasis upon the you have expanded part. You've expanded. You've expanded. You've expanded. Art of allowing is letting yourself be, by deliberate choice of your thoughts and words and behavior, letting yourself be a closer and closer vibrational match to who you have really become. And when you're not doing that, you want to blame everybody. You want to blame everybody because it just feels rotten not to feel and be who you really are. But don't lay it at their door, because they couldn't, if they wanted to, fix it for you. It's an inside job. It's a vibrational job. It's an attitudinal job. It's a moodable job. It's a vibrational job. It's an energy job. It's an emotional job. It's a I want to feel better job. It's a I can control the way I feel because I can control the direction of my thoughts job. There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain eternally and happily incomplete.